Thank you, everyone. Can you please take your seats? Great, thank you everyone. And while the rest settle, can you also please check to make sure that your cell phones are on silent? Thank you. Taking seats are hard when there are none. Great, thank you everyone. I think we now have enough chairs, that's wonderful. And please everyone, welcome to a debate for the Town of Winchester Housing Authority and School Committee sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Winchester. My name is Cheryl Shepard and it is my pleasure to represent the League as we bring you this evening's event. The League would like to acknowledge the Cummings Foundation for their generous grant that makes it possible for the Jenks Center to offer use of the facility at no cost to nonprofits like ours. Thank you to the Jenks staff for their support, and thank you also to WinCam for streaming these debates to the public and making them available on the WinCam website. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization with a mission to promote informed participation by all eligible voters and public understanding of major policy issues. We do not support or oppose any candidate or political party. We do study and take positions on major policy issues. We are organized at the national, state, and local level. Our policy positions and activities can be reviewed on the respective websites. If this forum and our mission meet your needs or even inspire you, we do encourage you to donate or become a member. All people may join and student membership is free. So this year, there are several contested seats among our town-wide boards. 2 seats for the Select Board, 2 for the School Committee, and 1 position on the Housing Authority Board of Commissioners. The candidates debating this evening and candidates running for other offices, including many of those running for town meeting, have provided the League with information about themselves and their candidacies. You can find these candidate profiles on our website at lwvwinchester.org. And thank you, candidates, for providing your profiles to us. Winchester's town government is run primarily by volunteers, and we are fortunate to have candidates for all town-wide boards this year. However, there are write-in opportunities for town meeting seats in precincts 1, 5, and 8. So please contact the town clerk if you're interested in undertaking a write-in campaign. Before we begin, we'd like to thank our candidates for showing commitment to our community by running for public office and for participating in our debate. We thank the town clerk's office and the election workers for organizing a safe, orderly, and inclusive election. And mostly we thank you, the voters, for exercising your right to vote and having your voice heard. This evening's debate will be moderated by Margaret Copey. Margaret is a trained League moderator and a member of the League of Women Voters of Lexington. Thank you, Margaret.
And thank you, and thanks to everyone who's here tonight. Good evening. Before we start, we do have two timekeepers who are sitting in the front row with a 30-second yellow pay sign and a red stop sign, and they will put it up so that I can see it, you can see it, and hopefully the rest of the audience can see that. And thank you all for doing that. That's a hard job, taking the time.
Extremely hard.
It is hard. Well, you have to pay attention. The Winchester Housing Authority has 5 members. 1 is appointed by the governor, and 4 are chosen by ballot. The WHA manages the construction, financing, maintenance, and rental policies of low-cost housing for low-income families and the elderly. It reports to the state and federal governments concerning their respective programs. The 2 candidates running for 1 4-year term are James Harris and Thomas Moyer. Did I say that right, Thomas?
Moyer, but that's fine, don't worry about it.
I'll work on that, okay. The rules for the debate are as follows. Each candidate will have up to 2 minutes for an opening statement. The order of speaking was determined ahead of time by a random method, and I believe that Thomas is going first and James second. Each candidate will have, after that I will ask the candidates for a series of prepared questions in rotating order. Each candidate will have up to 90 seconds for each answer. After each set of answers, I may request a rebuttal. Should a candidate choose to rebut, the candidate will have up to 30 seconds to do so. I may ask a follow-up question depending on how the discussion has gone. Personal references about other candidates are out of order. After our final question, each candidate will have up to 60 seconds for a closing statement. The closing statements will be given in reverse order from the opening statements. And just so those of you who are keeping track of the time, we're hoping to wrap this second segment up by 7:25. We will now start with opening statements, 2 minutes each, and we will start with Mr. Moyer.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I just want to say thank you, all of you, for being here. Thank you, League of Women Voters, for putting up with me making this a contested election. Thank you so much. But more importantly, thank you to voters of Winchester. Thank you for caring about those who grew up here. Thank you for caring for those who work here. And thank you for caring for those who someday we hopefully will have affordable housing for them to live in and retire here as members of our community as they deserve to. And I just want to introduce myself, Thomas Moyer. I am a native of Winchester, lived here since I was 2. Went through Morocco, McCall, and WHS. Graduated last year. Many of you might have seen us in our little red cap and gowns walking around to different schools. But now currently go to Northeastern University. I am studying mechanical and bioengineering as a combined major. However, I still do live in Winchester. I commute every day through Wedgmere train station, and I feel the impact that inadequate public transport gets us. We don't have enough public transport in our town. It's an understatement. Lexington has all these bus routes, we got 2. And really, I feel like we can do so much more as a town to advocate for those who live in affordable housing. We have to work on making a better connection between town meeting and a housing authority. Because right now, we're building supply for demand. The town meeting is putting out policies without consulting tenants, and the housing authority on a daily basis speaks with these tenants. And it's our duty as the town of Winchester to produce better services for them. Lastly, annual town elections are fortunately very low turnout, and this is a sad trend, but I really hope as a town this election will come out and vote, whether it's for me or Mr. Harris. I hope that you go out there personally, each one of you, and make a difference. Thank you, Winchester.
Thank you. Mr. Harris, you have 2 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. I want to start by thanking the League of Women Voters of Winchester and the Jenks Center for the opportunity to be here with you all. My name is James Harris. I am 31 years old and have been a resident of Winchester for many years of my life. I recently moved back into town a few years ago and now reside with my fiance, Amanda, in an apartment that we rent over on East Street. My family has been living in Winchester for about 100 years, and to say that I care about this town would be an understatement. I love living here, and I'm very proud of our community. I'm also very proud to be a part of the Winchester Housing Authority's current Board of Commissioners and hope to retain my seat in this election, as I know how vital of a resource the Housing Authority is for our residents. I had an uncle who was a resident at the Housing Authority for many years, and I've always been very grateful to the Housing Authority for everything it did for him and for our family. This is why last year I sought out the open seat on the Housing Authority's board and was unanimously appointed by the Winchester Select Board to hold the seat until the next town election. Since then, I've begun working toward a master's degree in public administration at the University of Rhode Island, and in the last year, I have helped the Winchester Housing Authority continue a smooth operation while learning all that I can every step of the way. This experience has been my first time not only working in local government, but has also served as an introduction to what I hope will be a long career working in the public sector. It is a privilege to be here with you all this evening, and I look forward to getting to know many of you and working with many of you in the coming weeks, months, and years. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now ask a series of questions that were prepared by the League of Women Voters of Winchester with extensive input from the public. The questioning will end at 7:20 to allow for closing statements, even if not all questions have been asked. So the first question, and we will start with you, Mr. Harris. What are the challenges facing the Housing Authority over the next few years? And as a commissioner, how do you propose to address these challenges and advance the mission of the board? 90 seconds.
Currently at the Housing Authority, since I've been on, we helped secure a grant for a resident service coordinator, which has been a huge help to our residents through outreach, various activities, and many basic other needs. Also, currently is the roof project, which is ongoing at Wesley Street. There is a new roof being put on the residential facility at 57 Wesley. It's currently underway and will soon be completed. We're also about to undertake a water pipe project. We're in the process of replacing all of the water pipes which serve our facility and residents of the Housing Authority, as the pipes are extremely old and they're beginning to cause issues and need replacement. This project actually began today, starting first on Palmer Street. Once Palmer Street has been completed, we will be replacing all of the water pipes that serve our facilities on Wesley Street. It's a big undertaking and will take up a majority of our capital funding for about 3 years, but it is necessary. And as a member of the Board of Commissioners, I'm glad to be able to be a part of the team that's making that happen. And I can't say enough about the staff and the executive director that are already there. They're doing a fantastic job, and it's been a privilege to work with them. And I hope you all and the rest of the town will allow me the opportunity to continue that work. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mourier, 90 seconds.
Very well said, Mr. Harris. Well, I'll say the biggest problem facing our town's affordable housing is communication. Can't stress that enough. We have a huge disconnect between town meeting members and housing authority. Right now, we have one body works for one side of town, the other body works for the other side of town. And that's unfortunate because we're both part of Winchester. Both bodies should work together for a better goal of a better Winchester and a better housing authority to provide for tenants. And right now, we have sort of a lot of services being thought out in town meeting without input from tenants, and that's a huge shame because ultimately you have to benefit tenants. And we're doing a great job, I'd say. Right now, I have some statistics from the county. The average wait time on a wait list for Housing Authority of Winchester is only 18 months compared to 42 months in the county. That's less than half. And on average, 17% of, we have an average occupancy rate of 17 more people per unit than the average in the county. It's huge. The Housing Authority is doing a great job, but there's a disconnect for future funding projects. So every elected official, this is part of our laws, can submit warrant articles, but the Housing Authority hasn't been doing that. And I wish that Housing Authority would submit warrant articles because they have daily feedback from tenants. And with warrant articles, we can make actionable items with the town agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question, and we'll start with you, Mr. Mourier. Do you feel that our public housing meets our needs? Please explain why or why not. What changes do you think we should work toward in the next 5 to 10 years? 90 seconds.
Short answer, absolutely not. We do not have adequate public transit at all. And as a suburban community this close to Boston, it's a shame. We have so many communities near us, Lexington and Woburn, who have much better public transport for the residents than we do. And we can change that. Lexington has a great system, Lexpress, which is a state-funded, town-owned service, which provides shuttles for everyone to use, but helps those who do not have cars even more. Not only being so sustainable, but it's been around for 40 years, and it's relatively inexpensive, at $2 per ride or $20 per year. This is a great way we can get our tenants around places, and there's huge demand for this public transport. A housing authority used to provide a van for these tenants to go around town, to go to Market Basket, to go get groceries every day of the week, whenever they wanted to. And unfortunately, that was scrapped due to cost. But having such a project would not only help Housing Authority tenants, but also town of Winchester in general, would be a great initiative to really promote public transport and the welfare of our tenants. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Harris, 90 seconds.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Sure. Do you feel that our public housing meets our needs? Please explain why or why not. What changes do you think we should work toward in the next 5 to 10 years?
So the Winchester Housing Authority manages 119 units. 112 of those units are elderly or young disabled. 7 of the units, the remaining 7, are family homes. I believe that we do have adequate public housing. However, the units and the facilities that these people are living in, they're old. They're 50, 60 years old in need of various updates. I've spoken with a lot of the tenants, and they voiced their opinions to me, and they've voiced a lot of their concerns to me over the last year. And if I'm reelected, I would be more than willing to, again, meet with all of them, field all of their opinions, all of their issues, and help them work towards crossing them all off the list so that they're having a more pleasant experience at the Housing Authority. To the public transportation comment, I would like to say that if I do get reelected, I would be happy to establish some sort of additional funding, maybe a fundraiser that we could put on where we could maybe raise money to buy back another van. And then we could have a community outreach program, maybe citizen volunteers that would be willing to drive the van, take these people, the residents, the tenants, to Walgreens, Market Basket, and so forth. But all in all, I think that we do have sufficient housing, and I think that we can make improvements, and we will make the necessary improvements in the years to come. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question will start with Mr. Harris. Besides funding from the state, are there alternative financial sources available to the town for housing infrastructure needs? 90 seconds.
We do get other means of funding to the Housing Authority, one of which is the Enka Society, which supports the Winchester Housing Authority in many ways through financial support, the food pantry. Just the other day, they were down there having a bingo night for the residents. On top of that, as I said, I would love to organize some sort of public fundraisers where we could raise money to then help the tenants that are living there check things off their list. So maybe they need a new toaster, they need a new refrigerator. We don't have the money because it's tied up in the water pipe project or it's tied up in the roof project. I would like to establish a way where we could get that additional funding and then ask them, what can we do with this money to help you? What do you need that would make your experience at the Housing Authority better? Because my goal as a commissioner of the Housing Authority is, my job is to support the executive director and the staff and to be there for the tenants and make myself available. But also, I want these people to live in a clean, safe, and orderly, well-run housing authority. That's the important thing. And if we could generate some extra income, maybe through a fundraiser or some sort of event that we can help them achieve that goal, I would be all for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Boyer.
All right, I hate to sound like a broken record, but I want to talk about public transport once again, specifically Lexpress. They're not entirely local funded. They get a lot of money from the state. And this is obviously something we want to leverage in our town too. All of our affordable housing projects, to some capacity, have funding from the state. And it only makes sense to expand the services used by these tenants, such as affordable housing. So in this creation in 1979, Lexington received $25,000 for the creation of a shuttle program. Now, it might not seem a lot now, but consider this is 40 years ago. This is substantial. And most recently, they received 2 grants of $200,000 apiece to support this further. So not only do they get money from the state, they also get money from the MBTA and MassDOT, since this is the MBTA, this is transit for Boston. And I really hope that at some point we can do this with Winchester. We can use and leverage state fund to create a community that's not entirely car dependent, move away from just personal vehicles clogging up our streets, causing traffic issues, and give people the option and tenants the option to really take the bus, take something which they can easily have a stop at their house and an essential service near them. Thank you.
Thank you. After the next question, we will go to the closing statements. So the next question, we will start with Mr. Morier. Should the Housing Authority try to work more cooperatively with Winchester town officials and boards, including the town manager, select board, planning board, town meeting, and the Public Works Department? Or is the current level of interaction sufficient? 90 seconds.
They obviously should work a lot more with all these positions. In fact, that is the main reason that I'm campaigning currently before you all. I feel like there's this disconnect I mentioned earlier. I don't want to get too much back into it. But it's in our home rule charter that the Housing Authority has permission to submit warrant articles to town meeting, get people's opinions on it, and pass new legislation with the consent of town meeting. And that's something we don't really see often, and I wish we could change that we can listen to tenants on a daily basis, figure out what do they want, and present it to town meeting. Currently, for capital improvements, the Housing Authority gets a flat fee of $250 from the town to do all of its projects. And that might be enough some years, but some years that's not enough. We have to be more dynamic with this. If the town meeting members received detailed reports, what exactly tenants are looking for, how should we spend the money, then instead of just giving out a flat fee every year, be a lot more dynamic. And instead of just building out projects slowly, kind of inch by inch with yearly funding, these projects can be completed all in 1 year, give tenants a better quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Harris, 90 seconds. Do you want me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
Should the Housing Authority try to work more cooperatively with Winchester town officials and boards, including the town manager, select board, planning board, town meeting, and the Public Works Department, or is the current level of interaction sufficient?
Well, as I stated earlier, I'm in graduate school, public administration, so I would love to work with more town officials, especially all the ones mentioned by the moderator. I believe that the goal of the Housing Authority, in fact, I know the goal of the Housing Authority is, as my role as a commissioner, is to make sure, again, that these tenants are having a pleasant, safe, clean, sanitary experience. So if we could get together with the other elected officials in town and make that happen on a faster, more efficient way, then that would be terrific. I feel as though the Housing Authority is a very well-run entity, and I would love to gain additional funding so that we could check these things off the to-do list. But as I stated in the beginning, right now we are undergoing several projects. We're putting a new roof on one of our largest residential facilities. We are putting all new water pipes that are going to service over 112 of our residents. That's not just 1 year's funding, that is years of funding, as well as finding additional money along the way to tick things off the list that need to get done. So I would love to work more closely with the other elected officials in town, and if I'm elected, I would love to seek out a way to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move to the closing statements, and Mr. Harris will go first. You have 1 minute.
In closing, I would remind you that a vote for me is a vote for experience. It is a vote for a person who has spent the last year familiarizing themselves with the everyday operations and concerns of the Housing Authority, attending meetings, getting to know and work with both the tenants and the staff, and taking courses on my own time through the Commonwealth and in graduate school to better my knowledge of the public sector and how local housing authorities are run. I have only just begun that which I intend on being a long career of working in the public sector, and I do not want that to stop now. Moreover, I love this town, so being able to serve as a person who can make a positive impact on both the town and the Housing Authority's tenants is paramount to me. There is nothing more important to me than doing my job and doing it well. So when you vote for James Harris on Election Day, you are voting for someone who is not only going to remain devoted to improving the town, but somebody who is going to remain devoted to ensuring that our Housing Authority is up to par with the very best in the state. I thank you all again for your time this evening, for your consideration, and I respectfully ask for your vote on the 26th. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mourier, and you have 1 minute also.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Yeah, I agree with Harris, Mr. Harris, that we're doing a great job currently with the Housing Authority. However, it can be better. There's always room for improvement, and I really hope I can bring that, if you will have me, of course. There's always room for improvement, but specifically communications when we're running on in public transport, I feel we can always do that better. I humbly ask for your vote, but of course, at the end of the day, I would say it's important that everyone gets out and votes on annual town election day. Our voter turnout was only 30% last year, but I really hope that if this debate serves one purpose, it's really to increase voter turnout. Thank you to League of Women Voters for hosting this debate. It must be pretty hard to organize this. I'm looking at all the people right now, but thank you so much for doing it. It means a lot to the town, I'm sure. And thank you to Mr. Harris for being a great Housing Authority manager currently. I feel like you've done a good job so far, and whoever wins, I expect that we'll have a pretty good shape for Housing Authority. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidates. As the candidates for the Housing Authority leave the stage, we invite the candidates for school committee to take their seats at the debate table. Thank you so much. Yeah, take your water. We need 2 waters. No, we're going to sit you in the order that the order, yeah. Marty?
Yeah, okay, good. Is anybody left-handed? Gonna give them that seat.
Well, I think they're assigning us based on
So it doesn't matter.
It's probably me at the end, yeah.
Am I yours?
Don't sit in order. I will give you.
You're second.
Okay. Sorry. Okay. Thank you.
How are you?
How are you?
Good.
Yes, oh, thank you. See you. All right.
Right over there. Oh, I'm extra. Oh, is this there? Oh. It is toasty in here. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to make it the whole time with this jacket on. I know. We will see.
I sweater last week when I was here.
It was roasting. Yeah. It's different than down there.
Yeah, well, there's lights up here.
Yeah. It's not even right
All right,
Lights are not.
okay.
Where is the camera?
That
Are
was
they
what
the
I was
ones in the
wondering.
back? Okay.
Those look like cameras.
It's possible I got a text saying they're apparently focusing right in on faces. So
They're the ones on the wall?
Wait.
I think it's the ones on the wall. And my husband texted and was like, they're actually doing these really awkward angles of faces. So just
Good evening, everyone. If you can please take your seats so that we can start the school committee debate. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, this year, there are 4 candidates for school committee running for 2 seats. Each position has a 3-year term. The candidates, and they're seated in the order in which they will do their opening statements, are Tom Hopcroft, the incumbent, Carrie Sue Barney, Timothy Matthews, and Mi Lin Trong. Oh, and you guys are not in the right order, right? Oh, no, you are.
no, I think it.
That's the order they put it here. You're in the right order for when you do. They drew numbers for when they were speaking. You're in the right order. You're fine. Okay. The debate rules. Each candidate will have up to 2 minutes for an opening statement. The order of speaking was determined ahead of time by a random method. After that, I'll ask the candidates a series of prepared questions in rotating order. Each candidate will have up to 90 seconds for each answer. After each set of answers, I may request a rebuttal. Should a candidate choose to rebut, the candidate will have up to 30 seconds to do so. I may ask a follow-up question depending on how the discussion has gone. Personal references about other candidates are out of order. After our final question, each candidate will have up to 60 seconds for a closing statement. The closing statements will be given in reverse order from the opening statements. We will now start with the opening statements, 2 minutes each, and we start with Mr. Hopcroft. Mr. Hopcroft, you have 2 minutes.
Well, good evening. Thank you to the League of Women Voters, and thank you all for being here. My name is Tom Hopcroft. I'm an attorney, a business executive, and a community leader known for my consensus building and policy-making skills. I've lived in Winchester for 18 years. I have 2 children, one with dyslexia and dysgraphia diagnosis. My experience as a state education policy leader, Education Foundation chair, and current chair of the school committee equips me with a unique perspective to serve our district effectively. Throughout my career, I've modeled integrity and inclusivity, fostering environments where every voice is valued. My leadership style prioritizes fairness, data-informed decision-making, and community trust. Regarding literacy, I support an evidence-based, structured phonics and phonemic awareness approach with teachers empowered to supplement their curriculum to meet the needs of each student in a personalized manner. I also support the development of district guidelines to ensure certain discredited techniques are not in use. I acknowledge the struggles and frustrations in our community and have spent countless hours working with district leadership on a thoughtful and more inclusive, data-informed approach to enable change. In athletics, I endorse enhancing our facilities for broader use, including reconfiguration of the high school gym to increase district and community utilization, host MIAA games, and increase facility revenue opportunities. As a member of the school committee's finance subcommittee, I'll continue to work to evaluate athletic fees and explore creative options for supporting our wrestling and other athletic programs. Sustainability is another priority, as seen by my advocacy for transitioning away from fossil fuels, as we've done with the new all-electric net zero Lynch building that will generate all of its power from solar panels on the roof and parking canopies, saving the town financially on utilities. There isn't sufficient time in my opening to address so many important issues, including equity, safety, facilities, theater, arts, math, STEM, SPED, social emotional support, traffic, fiscal prudence, and many other areas that come before the committee. I look forward to addressing some of these issues in the debate tonight. Learn more about me at tomhopcroft.com, and please consider voting for me on the 26th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hopcroft. Ms. Barney, you have 2 minutes. Do we have a 12-year-old in the house?
I mean, any button on the side.
Thank you. All right. Okay, after that, Ms. Barney, you have 2 minutes.
Okay, we're good?
Yeah.
We're good, okay. My name is Carrie Sue Barney. I have lived here since 2009. I moved here for the schools. I have a 13-year-old and a 16-year-old, both in the Winchester School District, one at McCall and one at the high school, and they went to elementary school at Lincoln. I was the PTA president at Lincoln for 3 years, and now I'm currently in my 3rd year, hopefully last, at McCall. I can't stay forever. And I also am a member of the ANCA Society in town. I really, really, really want to foster some collaboration in the community. I feel like it's been rough. If you go on Facebook, you know. And I think that it's time for everybody to just do some more listening and stop talking as much. And I would love to be the person to help them do that in the school committee.
Thank you. Ms. Trong, 2 minutes.
Well, thank you to the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this event, and to everyone who's joined us here today. My name is Mei-Lin Trong, and I'm asking for your vote for school committee. I'm a mother of 4. I have experience in shepherding my kids through every grade in Winchester, K through 12. My eldest 2 have graduated from Winchester High, and I have an 8th grader and a 5th grader in the school system. I've served on town meeting and the finance committee for 5 years. And as the chair of the finance committee last year, I secured the first balanced budget in more than 10 years. This marks my 5th year when on the finance committee, working collaboratively with the school committee and the superintendent on the education budget, so I'm familiar with that. I'm running because I want to make academic excellence the foundation of every child's education. Core curriculum, and specifically literacy and standards-based grading, are among my leading concerns, and the leading concerns I hear. As an immigrant, I've experienced firsthand the critical importance of literacy and excellence in the public school system. I have benefited from the support of outstanding public school teachers. Unfortunately, in our curriculum today, we're still using some of the deemed low quality in the state, and not science-based literacy curriculum. Communications is also a critical issue right now, and as witnessed in the 6th grade rollout of the standards-based grading. It was rolled out after school started. Many 6th and 5th grade parents wonder where it's headed and why there's no plan being communicated. I've also heard from many parents that they're having negative effects from the school system, from the 6th grade standard-based grading. I am asking for your vote for school committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Strong. Mr. Matthews, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you so much. Good evening to everyone here in person as well as those attending via WinCam. I'd also like to extend my thanks to the League of Women Voters for organizing tonight's debate, to WinCam for making it accessible to the community, and to all of my fellow candidates here at the table for taking time out to discuss the important issues facing our schools. My name is Tim Matthews. I'm a psychologist and an educator. I'm a researcher who's studied the ways families partner with schools to promote the well-being of their children, as well as how children learn to read from early childhood onward. I'm a town meeting member for Precinct 1, a parent to 2 wonderful kids ages 7 and 3, and a proud resident of Winchester since 2018. Promoting the well-being of children and their families is at the heart of why I shifted from a career in marketing and communications into education almost 12 years ago. My family came to Winchester because of its small town feel, its proximity to so much that the Boston area has to offer, and for its excellent schools. I believe that our community needs empathetic and experienced voices at the table as advocates for our children. It's often said that children are our most precious resource, and so as a member of the school committee, I will work tirelessly on behalf of your kids, as I do on behalf of my own, to listen proactively and to respond to the concerns of all our children and families. I will promote data and science-driven decision-making, and I will fight to elevate and honor the voices that have been marginalized and those in our community who are vulnerable. The school committee has a collective community responsibility to ensure that all children reach their potential and to ensure that appropriate resources are made available for teachers and children to excel. I'm running for this important office to collaborate with families, school leaders, town officials, departments, and local organizations to realize the vital goal of strategically investing so that every child receives an excellent education in Winchester. Thank you so much, and I look forward to tonight's discussions.
Thank you. We'll now go to the first question, and we'll be starting with Ms. Barney. The question, and at any time, if you would like for me to repeat a question, don't hesitate to ask me. As a member of the school committee, how would you work to build effective communication and collaboration with other school committee members and the superintendent, as well as other town boards and administrators? You have 90 seconds.
Well, fortunately, I've practiced with this already. The parent associations at the schools have to talk to school committee members and the superintendent a lot, and it's one of my favorite parts of volunteering. It's amazing how much you will learn about the schools if you volunteer in them. So many people don't. I work full-time. I still volunteer. And it has provided me with more knowledge than I think I'd ever gotten growing up in a house of 2 professors about how education works. So I would take that same vibe with me into the school committee. I love talking with people. I love listening to them. I love trying to figure out how I can help them. It's good for adults too, not just children. And I, respect other people's opinions, even if they're not my own, and I love to find ways for everyone to just make it work. It's, we all want the same thing, and it's very easily forgotten. Oh. No, sorry. Oh. Okay, guys. First, I have the alarm thing now. I'm kidding. Well, I stopped, so I guess it's okay.
Thank you. Ms. Trong, you have 90 seconds.
Right. Thank you. So I already have experience collaborating with the school committee and the superintendent, school administration for the last 5 years. And it has to be very collaborative because we have a limited amount of money in this town. And that's really hard to constantly, on the finance committee, say, well, we only have this much, so how can we balance this out? And we did it. And that's actually true collaboration, to have been able to do that last year when I was chair of the finance committee. The other thing is, it just comes as part of the territory. I grew up as one of 9 children, very, very, in the middle of the 9 kids. So I've been working collaboratively since I was born. And it's important because I know we all believe in the best education for our children. And I also know we all have very different opinions on how to get there. I've proven that I can do that as part of the leadership of the Finance Committee. I think I can do that on School Committee as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Matthews?
Could you repeat the question,
Sure.
please? Thanks.
As a member of the school committee, how would you work to build effective communication and collaboration with other school committee members and the superintendent, as well as other town boards and administrators?
Thanks
90 seconds.
Thanks so much. So let me sort of take that in two pieces. I think the first part was, how do you build a relationship with your other board members? And when I worked in the corporate world, I was fortunate enough to get a 360 evaluation on a regular basis during my time. And the thing that sort of always came up as a theme is that people appreciated the fact that I tend to listen first and talk second, which is kind of funny in this debate format because we're doing a lot of talking ourselves. But I think that's a really wonderful way to start out a relationship with folks who you don't know particularly well, and try to come up with a way of being together as a new group, especially after the election. I'm already a town meeting member in Precinct 1, so I've been inside of town government. I've volunteered on a town committee, and so I know a little bit about how the Winchester ecosystem works already, and I know a lot of the folks who are involved. And I think that what has worked the best during my time in town government in Winchester is understanding the importance of having a collaborative spirit, trying to build consensus across different groups of people. There are lots of different groups that advocate for things in this town. I think if we carefully listen to each of them and then try to come up with a solution that represents the needs that everybody has, that really works the best. So I've been excited to be able to do that through my work on town meeting, and I hope to be able to continue that on school committee as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Hopcraft?
Oh, thank you for the question. Communication and collaboration are essential in a town like Winchester with a volunteer leadership government, and yet it's hard because a lot of people have full-time jobs. Open meeting law prevents more than 2 school committee members from being able to have a conversation about any policy. So the communication. I think of it, certainly, between and among different entities in town as really essential. Particularly if you want to move something forward. So we have some structures in place. Certainly within the schools, there's PISC, the Parent Inter-School Council, where leadership of all of the different school parent associations get together, and we try to have a school committee member or superintendent attend those meetings. Individual members attend the individual PA meetings as much as they can. We have crossover members who sit on Capital or EFPBC or other committees in town. But in particular, I also wanted to say, as we want to move really important initiatives forward, a lot of them really involve having town support behind them. And I think a process like the one we're beginning with, you're really understanding, you're bringing a third party to really go deeper into what's happening across the district is a really important mechanism, so that when we go to town meeting to advance our budget, we have the support of the community with us. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question will be starting with Ms. Trong. And the question is, if elected, what do you hope would be a key accomplishment of the school committee in special education during your tenure? 90 seconds.
Thank you. Key accomplishment for special education, I believe, is actually communications. I have spoken to WinPAC. I know there's currently already some communication, but there needs to be a lot more. And I've spoken to parents who have had difficulty understanding when they're recognizing that a child already has difficulty, but not knowing. There's no comprehensive list that I know of, and the parents don't know of, not even WinPAC, of all the things available as a parent. That's difficult. So I would propose that we publish everything available to the parents as a solution to helping with special education. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Trong, can we ask you to move your microphone a little closer to
sorry.
you?
I can speak louder too. Can you hear me now?
Is that better? Yeah.
Okay.
I was getting some communication from the audience there. Okay, this question, we now go to Mr. Matthews. Do you want me to repeat the question?
That would be great, thanks.
Okay, if elected, what do you hope would be key accomplishments of the school committee in special education during your tenure?
So I've had the good fortune during the course of this campaign to speak to the leadership of WINPAC, the special education advocacy group that exists in Winchester. And it's really great to have a strong and active group supporting kids who have specific learning needs in our schools. Obviously, let me just, I'll park that second comment for a second, but I think that Milan is correct that communication is one of the most important issues that we have in terms of being able to facilitate a productive relationship between parents who have kids who are either on IEPs or have 504s and the district leadership, as well as obviously the teachers in their classroom. But I think we also need to do a better job, a good job of bringing those students to the center of our district's life and honoring their contributions. One of the things I've actually heard from talking to parents is that there's some concern around the way that the contributions of those students are honored. And sometimes, one specific example that was actually shared with me was that there was a night where parents were invited to the school where their children went, and the specific materials from their child's special education classroom weren't actually shared as part of the handouts that were provided, and also weren't necessarily displayed as part of the displays that were on the walls of the school when they arrived. And we really have to think about what message that sends both to the kids as well as to the parents. And so I think there really are some specific areas in which the district leadership and the school committee can collaborate more.
Thank you. Mr. Hopcroft?
Yeah, thank you. So, as a parent who's been through both the IEP and the 504 process, it's really hard. And the first time in particular, it can be just overwhelming. Fortunately, the folks, I'm in the Lynch district, and the folks there were absolutely fantastic and walked us through a lot of this. But it's like a whole different world, what your rights are and what you can do. So I think, much as the other panelists have said, having more information, I think, is helpful. I mean, the levels of support that are available, that that there's support that's pushed into your classroom to, a specialist can come in and work with your kid, or pulled out of the classroom, or the fact that we have special programs around the district, and that we work with other districts on putting together collaboratives that, for increasing levels of needs, and then, obviously beyond that, the out-of-district placement. But I think understanding the process and making that more available would be helpful, and then ensuring that there's equity and that people kind of knowing what's available and what's there and what to advocate for would be very helpful, I think. So yeah, I think for me, I'd like to see some more communication and coordination and just helping parents just navigate the process and understand it more. Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Barney, do you need me to repeat the question?
Please.
Okay. If elected, what do you hope would be key accomplishments of the school committee in special education during your tenure? 90 seconds.
I think my greatest wish, having experience with this myself, is that every family should feel heard and feel like they're a part of the process. And they are a part of the process. But sometimes I understand that they don't feel that way, and I hear it a lot. And I also want the child to be a part of the process as they get older. They need to be, they are in the room, and it's hard for children to confront something that they think is wrong with them. And it's very hard to explain that nothing's wrong with them, that they just learn differently. And I would love for that to happen for everyone, and I know that sounds like a very Pollyanna answer, but part of that is hiring the right people, making sure the right people are in the room, making sure parents have an outlet like WINPAC, support groups, things like that could be done through the parent associations. But working with a school committee that functions well is going to create that environment throughout. It all rolls downhill, but this time in a good way.
Thank you. We'll now go to the next question, and we'll be starting with Mr. Matthews on this one. Do the Winchester Public Schools spend too little, just enough, or too much If too little or too much, please explain what you would add or cut from current programming. 90 seconds.
Wow, that's a really complicated question to be first on, but I'll do my best. For those of you that have heard me talk about this before, I think that the Winchester Public Schools need to invest further in order to make our kids successful. And I think there are really specific places. Obviously, the hottest conversation that's in right now is the conversation around literacy curriculum in the early grades. I think that's a really easy place to start, right? I think investing in curricular resources, which are constantly shifting during the course of the evolution and the understanding around the science of how kids are taught to read, how kids are taught to do mathematics, right? There's a constant shift and an update in terms of the way we understand through the lenses of cognitive science and things like that about how children learn. And so investing in new curriculum is actually something that's has a lot of great returns. So I'd say number one of the clear investments we need to make is in curriculum. I think having some more investment in terms of communication would also be really helpful. I've heard consistently from parents that there's a gap in communication between leadership, both at the school level as well as at the district level, and parents. And so I think there are many ways in which we can do that. And then another thing I think that's really important is to continue to invest in the constant ability of teachers to learn more about what they're doing in the classroom, to give them a place to share best practices across teachers, to make sure that those who are doing new and innovative things can share that with their colleagues and they can implement that in their classrooms as well, and that costs money. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Hopcroft?
Yeah, so this is a complicated issue. Winchester is in the bottom third of spending per pupil, and so and yet it's hard because we have such a large residential tax base that the burden falls on them, and so there's always a lot of pressure. And to give you an example, we just voted a budget that was $66.69 million, $3.5 million more than before, which is a 5.53 increase, and 2.56 of that is contractual obligations. We're reducing the number of staff, and yet, with just the step and lane increases. Out of district tuition also, it has gone up 14% last year, even though we have fewer kids in out of district placements. So we as a committee, we voted an extra just over $300,000 for literacy, $145,000 for math, $50,000 for theater, and $4,500 for athletics, hockey, safety equipment. And I think those were the right but insufficient investments. This is in an environment where we haven't been investing. Last year I think we invested in 2/10 of a Mandarin professor, teacher. It's an environment, but it's a hard thing because there's a lot of people whose kids are out of the house, and the tax burden is felt on them as well. So, where I voted was literacy, math, theater, and athletic safety equipment in this current round, but there's a lot more that's needed that we can't afford.
Thank you. Ms. Barney?
Repeat the question, please.
Do the Winchester Public Schools spend too little, just enough, or too much? If too little or too much, please explain what you would add or cut from current programming.
Well, we spend what we have. Would I like it to be more? Absolutely. I buy lottery tickets. But I always want more for the schools. We always ask, parent associations always ask parents for donations. They're very generous with their donations. We try to use them as wisely as we can. It's so hard to watch the budget for schools being put together. It's a giant chessboard. Principals moving teachers around, figuring out who's going to retire, where's that money going to go. I mean, it's fascinating. I've seen some of it in action, and I love it. But we have to listen to the community about what they want. We're hearing what they want right now. And we have to make sure that we spend it on the right things. And I understand that putting your faith in the school committee to make sure all the money goes to the right place is very scary. Someone asked me, how can I find trust? And I'm not sure how I can tell people to find trust other than vote for someone you think you can trust.
Mr. Hopcroft?
Can we do a
Yeah,
rebuttal?
Ms. Strong has
sorry.
it answered.
I'm sorry.
After she has answered.
Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Strong, you have 90 seconds.
Thank you. Let me know if you cannot hear me. It's a great question, and we currently spend an average about $19,000 per student. The state average is $20,000. We are less than the state average. We, however, are on par with other schools that are similar to us, like Belmont, like Arlington, in terms of our per pupil spending. As we all know, there's a limited total number of dollars of all the things I experienced in the Finance Committee for the whole town, and more than 90% comes from residential taxes. So if we increase anything, in the school budget is the biggest budget, then it puts a burden on taxpayers directly. However, if there is extra money, my focus would be to spend it in where I heard is the most critical space. There's a Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 in the school system in terms of learning, and Tier 1, everyone's good. Tier 2, the students are not doing as well, but they're not in the Tier 3, the special education category. I hope that if there's extra money, we spend it here in the Tier 2 before our kids, any kids, get into the Tier 3, when parents start being concerned but haven't gotten the special ed they need. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hopcroft would like a rebuttal. You have 30 seconds, and the rest of you would have an option to do this also.
Yeah, I just wanted to raise the issue, with regard to the Parent Association's doing a wonderful job, raising money for the schools, which I think is hugely important. I think WIFI has a great model where they collect money from the town and distribute it through grants to teachers and students. I worry about with the range in differences, the equity differences between our most diverse Title I, most low income, most English learner school and our other schools, that it be done equitably.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to comment on that? Ms. Barney?
Yes.
30 seconds.
Okay. I'll just say that I should have added when I was talking about Parent Association funds, we always say that the direct appeal that we do at McCall, we start spending where the budget stops, meaning we try to get the things with schools that they can't get through the budget, and we work very closely with principals to do that. But I just wanted to make that clear.
Ms. Trong?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I think that's a great point, that we do have a lot of very supportive parents and who do tremendous amount of fundraising. And I was a former co-chair of the enrichment committee at Ambrose. It was a great opportunity to add in additional education. It was fun programs. We brought in different puppet programs, different science programs for the kids to learn. So there's opportunities there as well, and it's happening right now.
Thank you. Mr. Matthews?
Thanks so much. So I went sort of more high level with the things that I highlighted before, but I would just say I agree completely with what Tom said around the equity piece for the fundraising that's done in individual schools. It's really hard when you have 5 schools and they have different positions, but I really believe that our town is in a very strong financial position in many ways, and that should allow Winchester to invest incrementally, strategically, and thoughtfully to enhance students' access to opportunities and reduce some of the things that are unmet needs facing our students and families. Obviously, there are a lot of families who are providing outside tutoring, and I think there's a way we can provide that in the schools as well.
Thank you. The next question is a rather lengthy one, so you need to pay attention. But I will be glad to repeat it, and we will be starting with Mr. Hopcroft. When town meeting voted to support a new Lynch building, the proposal was to begin the Morocco School project right after Lynch reopens. However, this past fall at town meeting, the Educational Facilities Planning and Building Committee proposed starting the Morocco project in 2028, and at a later meeting, they discussed pushing the date to 2030. Given that it took 7 years to plan and set an opening date for Lynch, Morocco would not happen before 2037, over 10 years after the reopening of Lynch School. What are your thoughts on this issue?
All right. So
90 seconds.
All right. So the new Morocco is a commitment that we've made to the town, and it needs to be done in a timely fashion. There are a lot of steps and wheels that have to turn in the process. The committee just voted to submit Morocco to the MSBA, Mass State Building Authority, which is contributing about $20 million towards the Lynch project already. So it's a huge financial benefit to partner with the state on this. We will be submitting at the next available time, which is in January of 2025. Prior to that, we've hired the UMass Donahue Institute to do some enrollment and demographic studies that we'll need for that application. So we are in the process of putting the application in right away. With the Lynch building, it took several tries before we got it. And we couldn't really start on the MSBA process until Lynch was started. So we couldn't start it sooner. We've made our commitment that we are going to put in the filing with the Mass State Building Authority because we think that funding is critical. At the earliest time, we're doing the work to be ready for that. And we look forward to getting the Morocco building up and going as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Barney, would you like me to repeat the question?
I think I remember it.
Wow. Okay.
I'm sure you'll need to repeat it again, so I don't want to ask you the first time. Tom did a great job answering that.
Thank you.
You have all the numbers at your fingertips. I appreciate it. To answer the question, no, I don't think that's acceptable. Morocco needs to be rebuilt. I also know how hard it is to get the state money and how hard the school committee and superintendents have worked to get it. And getting it for Lynch was such a coup, and it's amazing. And I remember they were talking about this when my oldest, who's 16, was like in kindergarten. So to see it finally happening, it's so exciting. I'm so happy for the kids there. I know it's disruptive. The buses are an issue right now, but it's going to lead to so much greatness. And I would love to see that happen for Morocco as soon as possible. And I would definitely work on it as hard as I could.
Thank you. Ms. Trong, do you want me to repeat the question?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you. It's actually been under discussion in the Finance Committee, so I'm familiar with this. So lots of things are under discussion right now. That is a concern, a major concern, 2037 for Morocco. It can be built sooner. We do have a big, over $20 million operating reserve. Of course, we also have a lot of capital projects that need to be done. And Morocco needs to be weighed up against all those other projects. What is our priority? We have a limited budget. What's our priority? If that is our priority, we could consider setting some of that money aside. Start now. The other consideration, it may be, I'm not on the school committee, I don't understand the full MSBA process, but have we considered not? That process itself is great, we get some money, but we also have a lot of delays. I mean, it takes a while to go through that process. Maybe we should consider building it ourselves. We would get there sooner than 2037, I believe. So there is a fund out there called the Building Stabilization Fund. It was meant to be money put aside for things like Morocco rebuild. Sure, there were other needs and it was used for other purposes, but we should consider that, going back to putting money aside for schools like Morocco. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Matthews, would you like me to repeat the question?
I would, please, thank you.
When town meeting voted to support a new Lynch building, the proposal was to begin the Morocco School project right after Lynch reopens. However, this past fall at town meeting, the Educational Facilities Planning and Building Committee proposed starting the Morocco project in 2028, and at a later meeting, they discussed pushing the date to 2030. Given that it took 7 years to plan and set an opening date for Lynch, Morocco would not happen before 2037, over 10 years after the reopening of Lynch School. What are your thoughts on this issue?
Well, I mean, I live in the Morocco catchment area, and when I moved to Winchester in 2018, I was under the assumption that by the time my kids went to elementary school, they would be able to go to the new Morocco. There is no issue that is more important to the folks in our neighborhood in precincts 1 and 2 than when is Morocco going to be open. In fact, I know that Chris Nixon on the school committee actually added a separate page to the Lynch Rebuild website that the school committee published that said, when will Morocco open? You know, I mean, it's unacceptable that it's taken this long. I think our community, our part of the community, has been waiting for a really long time for an updated school building. Many of you may or may not know there is a combined cafeteria, gymnasium, and auditorium at the Lynch School, which means I remember when I first voted in Winchester, we actually had to kick the kids out of that one shared tri-purpose room during the time that we were voting in that space, which is part of the reason why voting moved to the high school. So, you know, as I said, we moved here expecting to be able to send our kids to that school, and we now know that it's very likely that it'll be another generation of kids who finally get to enjoy that new building. And so I do agree with those who say that we might want to investigate some creative solutions around the rebuild that can accelerate the timeline. We have to listen really hard to the community, though, and make sure, especially with the quality new building being built at Lynch and the other quality schools that have been built, that our neighborhood doesn't feel like they're being sort of the last priority.
Thank you. Mr. Hopcroft?
Yeah, if I could jump in again. You know, I'm skeptical of the timeline. The 2028 to 2030 window is the time that's listed on that page on the Lynch site for Morocco. So I do think that's within the time frame we were looking at. And I do understand that there were some inabilities to start it until we had the Lynch project underway, and we're moving as quickly as we can. I worry, given all the needs the district has for, you know, 50,000, 300,000, et cetera, to say, oh, we're going to pull $20 million out of the town, you know, to pay for this. I think, and by the way, I have a kid at Lynch who's never going to see the new building, but getting the money from the state, the $20 million, I think is the path to go on this. And if it delays over time, you know, then we can take cash. But, okay.
Does anyone else want to address this? 30 seconds? Yeah, Ms. Trump?
Actually, so just to clarify, I want to make sure that I'm not misunderstanding what Mr. Hopcroft said, that more than 20 million operating reserves, I did not propose to take all of that out. We do need to deal with competing projects out there. However, we all understand that free, quote unquote, free money isn't always free. It comes with requirements. The way we build, the reason that happened, we're having to redo our gym is because that wasn't allowed when we're doing the high school.
Anyone else? If you don't mind, I'm going to take a moment just to interject here. As I was introduced, I live in Lexington, and we just found out Tuesday night at our Town Meeting Member Association information meeting that the new proposed high school, which they're into the MSBA thing now, is going to be between 500 and 600 million. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, our jaws dropped. And, you know,
Sounds nice.
Can I mean, because that if I were going to give a rebuttal,
yeah.
That was what I was going to say. This is a massive cost, right? But
yes.
I think we do have, you know, an imperative to try to make this happen for the students of Morocco as quickly as possible, right? Because it is a massive amount of money, but at the same time, it's the last school in the district that's had the opportunity to be done. And I think we need to make good on our promise to the families in our neighborhood around that.
And we have the same concerns you have, that there are a lot of families who don't have children in the schools anymore, and that, for example, I have grandsons who will probably not see the new high school. I thought they would, but now I don't think they will. So, you know, we do go through that. The town has been putting all the extra tax income from the commercial development into a stabilization fund to offset the taxes. So, you know, the tax increases. So they are working on that, but still, I think that number kind of boggles us.
Yeah.
So when you think about, you know, your money, and I don't think Lexington will turn down the MSBA funding, not at all. All right, question 5, and we'll start with Ms. Barney. Do you support giving Parkhurst School to the town at the completion of the Lynch project? If so, what would we use for swing space for future school renovations? For example, Morocco. Ms. Barney.
I did not realize that giving Parkhurst to the town was something that people were talking about, I'll be honest. I think that we desperately need the space. We've got even before the Lynch kids were there, that was where the administration was. We've crammed the administration into different places. One of them is Lincoln School. I've been there and seen where some of the administration is in the building. When you put administration in one of the elementary schools, that means a teacher has to move, a specialist has to move, several specialists have to move. So I can't imagine that we wouldn't use the space, especially if we redo, when we redo Morocco. We'll need to put those kids somewhere, unless the new Lynch is big enough to hold them all, which I assume it's not. So that's a tough one. I would definitely need more information on the source of that, but that's my answer for now.
Thank you. Ms. Trong?
Yes, thank you. Well, as an out-of-the-box thinker, I know we will need swing space, but if we, now I'm not sure what the question related to giving it to the town means, but there is an option to sell it and use that money to build Morocco faster. I mean, why not? But that's just me. I don't understand all the policies, but I do understand that it is a property we have, and we currently house the administration somewhere else. If that's working, then maybe we should consider some out-of-the-box thinking and move Morocco up faster.
Thank you. Mr. Matthews?
So I have heard some of this conversation swirling around, and I think a lot of it, Milan, goes to the point that you made, that it's a resource that the town has, and it's possibly a place where we can get some additional revenue. For myself, I don't think that's a good idea at all. I think we have to preserve the option of having a place where we can send the kids from Morocco if there's a reconstruction on the same site, especially. But the kids who were at Morocco, I think, are almost inevitably going to need a place to go during the reconstruction of the building, and so making that decision at this point in time, I think, would be unwise. I think it's too soon to know what we may want to do. Now, in a year or two, we might revisit that, having a greater sense of what the plans are for the reconstruction of Morocco, but as of right now, I definitely could not support that.
Okay. Mr. Hopcroft?
Yeah, and I think that with by the way, all of these sort of hypothetical decisions, we would look at the information at the time. So there is if Morocco is really 2037, that's a different thing than if it's actually starting in 2028 to 2030. But in the case of Parkhurst, I generally favor continued ownership of Parkhurst, as I do of the Mystic School, because it gives us greater flexibility to meet the needs of our students. As was mentioned, it's important swing space. We used it as swing space for Ambrose, for VO, and we're using it now for Lynch. And I think, as Mr. Matthews was saying, when we look at the Morocco school, there's some options of, do we build it on the same site, or do we move it over to the field adjacent? If we want to have the flexibility to make that choice, we need a place to put the students if you want to be able to put it on the same site. And so for that reason, I would certainly want to keep it there. It's also, it's an attractive building for potential tenants. We've had collaboratives express interest in renting the facility from us, and I know that some of our athletics teams, the wrestling teams in particular, are interested in using the, I think they have a cafegimatorium as well, but I think they want to use the cafegimatorium, and there's some restrictions about whether the high schoolers can be in with elementary. So it's been used for preschool, it's been used for a lot of different things. I think the flexibility is really more valuable, and we can rent it in the interim, but we can't get it back once we give it to the town or sell it.
Thank you. Well, now that we'll move on to the next question, and we'll be starting with.
Can I?
Sure.
Thank you. I just want to clarify that I did not actually say yes. I said maybe. I think we need to explore lots of options out there for Parkhurst.
Thank you. The next question, we do start with Ms. Trong. Please share your views about the status of Winchester's literacy program and the changes being proposed. Where would you like to see the literacy program go?
Oh, well, thank you. It is actually a topic on my list. I've spoken to teachers as well as parents. The literacy program, first of all, has a lot of different programs in it, inside it right now. It's not one system we're using. It's not just the Lucy Hawkins Units of Study. It's not just UFly. I would like to see for us to basically get rid of the ones that are not effective right now, add in more curriculum, literacy curriculum that has been deemed effective and high quality, and keep the ones that are already working. Like my understanding is UFly is working. So it's not uproot and completely pull everything out that we're using now. Keep the ones that are working well and work with the teachers who really do understand what's working well, and then remove the ones that aren't. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Matthews,
Could you repeat the question, please?
please share your views about the status of Winchester's literacy program and the changes being proposed. Where would you like to see the literacy program go?
So I'll start with the last part of the question. Where would I like to see it go? I'd like to see us move faster to getting to a solution and a resolution around what's going on. And I think a lot of what I've heard from parents is frustration around communication, hopes that communication can be more effective, and that we move more quickly. I think there's a real sense of urgency among many parents, especially those whose children have been let down by the instructional practice and the curricular materials that they've been offered in the district, to see something change. And so I think the first thing I would say is I would like it to go in a direction of change, which I think, especially having been at the chamber breakfast yesterday, all of the candidates here are in support of some kind of change, but I think that I would like to see it go a little bit faster. I am a person who actually has a background in early literacy. I think the conversation around the science of reading has been very much spurred on by national media reports. People are aware and talking about what's going on, even if their children aren't necessarily even in the early grades yet, or they've already passed the early grades. And so I'd like to make sure that we know what's going on in our classrooms. I would like to make sure that we know that the curricular resources that are available to teachers are high quality and up to date. And I would like to make sure that we also know that if there are concerns, those concerns, there's an open forum for sharing those concerns back from families to teachers, from families to administration, from families to the school committee, and we can take action based on those.
Thank you. Mr. Hopcroft.
Yeah, as I mentioned in my opening, I do support an evidence-based structured phonics and phonemic awareness approach in all of our schools, while also, empowering our teachers to be able to supplement and provide personalized education. I do think having some guidelines that say, some techniques have been discredited, that we can have guidelines to help communicate, because we're always bringing new teachers into the district, and they, our strategy here is a strategy of investing in the teachers. It's neighborhood schools, small class sizes, it's hiring teachers that have 4 or 5 years experience, not brand new teachers, and really investing in them with the professional development, and materials and support that they need. And so some of them are going to come here with techniques from outside the district. And so being able to communicate that, we have guidelines that say these things are off limits, but at the same time giving them the ability to, to give the personalized care that each kid needs, I think is really important. I think for our community, I think communications is a really good point. Mr. Matthews was saying, I think really having a common understanding about what's going on in all of our classrooms. I've heard just a lot of different, there's just a lot of different anecdotal information. And I'm sure that it's all based in fact somewhere, but I want to know how consistently we are offering the structured approaches, because I hear that in a lot of places. Where aren't we? And we can address that. Where are there, are we using any of the discredited things, and if so, where not? Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Barney, do you want me to repeat the question?
Please, thank you.
Please share your views about the status of Winchester's literacy program and the changes being proposed. Where would you like to see the literacy programs go?
Well, there obviously needs to be some change. The community has let us know that. I have spent what seems like countless hours talking with educators and parents about this the past few weeks to get myself up to speed on what has changed just since my kids left elementary school. I think one of the problems we do have is that we don't know what the teachers are doing. When I ask that question, we don't have an answer. And I know that Dr. Hackett has, and the school committee we have a study going on, and I think that's a great start. Until we have all the data, we can't make an educated decision. Having said that, as the daughter of a biostatistician, I can tell you that statistics can be skewed to tell you anything you want to hear. But we at least need to know what the teachers are doing first. But after that, once we know that, we could talk about ways to move forward. I advocate for teachers having choices so that they can adapt to each individual child. I know one of my children benefited from that greatly. But also, we don't need to be using techniques that have been discredited. And when our families come to us and tell us that they need change in such great numbers, then we need to listen to them. That being said, I think we all agree that we want our kids to learn to read. And I'm not being flippant. It's true. We need to remember that we all want the same thing. We just need to figure out how to get there.
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Chung?
Just want to add something. Actually, this is in something that I had mentioned before, and it's an elementary school teacher had a great idea that we can actually do something now in K through 2 so that there's no more third graders, or every kid who can read should be reading by third grade, is that we should focus on these kids. So in Tier 2, these kids in K through 2, where the teachers already know that those kids are going to have issues.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yeah.
Can I just say, so we need change, but where? And so you can't get from point A to point B without knowing where those gaps are and where those places are that need to be fixed. The other is not knowing what's happening. I think we have actually a pretty good sense of what's happening, but there's a suggestion that maybe people don't feel comfortable and there's a safe enough space to be telling us the bad stuff. And so, creating a safe space and having a third party come in and talk to all of our educators and talk to our parents and really understand that stuff that maybe people don't feel comfortable telling us. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say that, in terms of cognitive science research, we actually do know quite a bit about which approaches that are used in classrooms use either disproven strategies or are lower quality. And so what I would say is a great starting point is to just say we are not going to use disproven lower quality approaches in the classroom moving forward. And I just think it's really important. We are a town that has a lot of resources despite some of our budgetary challenges, and I want to make sure that Winchester's children have access to updated, evidence-based, cutting-edge curricular supports in the classroom. I think that's the most crucial thing that we can do, and also great professional learning opportunities for our teachers.
Thank you. Okay, go on to the next question now. We'll be starting with Mr. Hopcroft with this one. Some peer school districts, including Lexington and Brookline, have recently cut back or eliminated high school honors levels courses in the subject of English in an effort to improve learning outcomes for students with learning disabilities and students of color. What are your views on maintaining or reducing honors level courses? Mr. Hopcroft, you have 90 seconds.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any removal of honors level courses being discussed in our district. I don't think that would be a great idea. I think it's very important for a lot of students. I think having differentiated levels is something that's been valuable. At the same time, I'm highly supportive of our special education, our IEPs and 504s, and providing students the supports they need to be able to participate in those classes. So, if people need, additional time on tests or to be able to take a test in a different room because they have anxiety or other issues that, I think that being flexible and trying to support the personal needs of all of our students is important. But I don't think, de-leveling the curriculum makes sense. That's a much bigger question that would have to come out of the district.
Thank you. Ms. Barney.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Some peer school districts, including Lexington and Brookline, have recently cut back or eliminated high school honors level courses in the subject of English in an effort to improve learning outcomes for the students with learning disabilities and students of color. What are your views on maintaining or reducing honors level courses?
Well, full disclosure, I have a master's degree in English literature, so. And I took honors level courses when I was in high school. But, humble brag. But I definitely wouldn't want to remove them. I definitely would like to find another way to support those other students that need support. I mean, it's easy for me to say, why can't we do both? I'm not on the school committee yet. I know nothing's ever easy and everything takes a long time, but I would need to know more about this. It scares me a little bit, especially after the COVID learning loss. We don't need to be, we definitely need to be helping the kids who need the help, and I think across the board, all kids need help, and sometimes taking an honors course can really set a fire in a kid and make them love something, and even more, and I would hate to see that go away, especially kids who are more disadvantaged and are able to get that in a public school, whereas a lot of families in our town can afford to have tutors and enrich their kids themselves. Some kids can't. Let's not take that away from them.
Thank you. Ms. Trong.
Thank you. I am running on the foundation of academic excellence, so of course the honors level classes should stay. And actually, I mean, there's already research in California where they removed some honors classes, and turns out it did not help those kids who are disadvantaged. It made it worse. So to me, lowering standards is actually lowering the outcomes for all, and removing honors would be doing that. And if we keep the standards high, keeping the honors, the AP classes, it would result in the high standards for all and the high results for all. And since we're talking about English, I mean, English is my second language, so it really was helpful to have the honors classes. It did make it something that I wanted to go into and did, and so it helped me, and would help all if we kept those honors classes. And we have seen results, so I'm surprised that Lexington and Brookline are removing, because other schools in California are putting it back.
Thank you. Mr. Matthews, you have 90 seconds.
Thanks so much. So I'm so glad for a question about equity, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity to talk about equity in our schools. I've said a lot tonight about strategic investment in our schools and the places where we actually have the ability to invest in our students. To answer your question, that this would not be a place where I would choose to make changes in Winchester. It certainly would not be the place I'd start to try and look at some of the equity issues in the Winchester School District. So I'm a data person. I really like playing with data. Sometimes it keeps me up at night. And one of the things I've actually looked into is the State Department of Elementary and Secondary Education has actually quite a bit of data on its website about the different demographic dimensions of our schools. We have schools in our district where more than 10% of the students are defined by the state as low SES. That's low socioeconomic status or low income. We have some schools where we have up to 30% of our population that are English language learners. So that means that their first language is not English. And so if I were really trying to make a difference around equity in the Winchester Public Schools, I think those are some places that I would start first before I would start thinking about removing honors level classes at the secondary level. I think there are strategic and targeted investments we can make, especially in the earlier grades, that would allow us to address some of the equity issues that we face in the Winchester schools, rather than taking the approach of those other towns in this area. Thanks.
Thank you. We will now move to the closing statements. We will have them in reverse order of the opening statements, which means we will be starting with Mr. Matthews, and you have 1 minute for your closing statement.
Thanks so much to the League of Women Voters for sponsoring tonight's forum. Thanks to our moderator, and thank you to my fellow candidates for such an engaging and thoughtful debate. Winchester is filled with residents who care, who step up to celebrate their children's accomplishments, particularly in our schools, and to face the challenges that are part of every family's life. I'm proud to be raising my children in this town, and I'm excited to bring my professional expertise to serve my family's community as a member of school committee if you'll vote for me. I hope that what you heard clearly tonight is my commitment to promote communication, family-school partnership, and science-based policies, a commitment to advocate for the needed and targeted investments in our schools that will improve the lives of Winchester students and families. Relationship building, collaboration, trust, compassion, and data-driven leadership. A vote for me on Tuesday, March 26th will bring these qualities to the Winchester School Committee. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Ms. Trong, you have 1 minute closing statement.
Thank you. Well, thank you to everyone for being here, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this and all the candidates. I believe we do, all of us are quite invested and involved in our children's education. This is where we care deeply, and that we all have different solutions. And that is something that needs to be worked out. I believe that I can bring that kind of leadership, of collaboration. I've done it before. And that communication and transparency is paramount in terms of being a school committee candidate. I think that's where some of the issues have started, and we need to fix that. And I believe that I'm the candidate that can help with this, so I hope to have your vote for school committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Barney, you have 1 minute.
Y'all, thanks for coming. This is good, right? And everybody out there on WinCam, seriously, I think this is probably the most well-attended WinCam viewing of all time, which is great. I love the idea that something has really gotten parents excited about making changes, and my advice to all of you is to volunteer. It makes such a difference in your life, your kid's life, all the kids in Winchester. I love what I do for volunteering in the schools. I'm a better person for it, and you learn so much about how things work. Nothing's easy. Everything's hard. It takes time. It takes money, and all of that takes patience. And while my mother would say I'm not patient, having 2 children exactly like me has made me more patient. And I would like to think that I would bring that to the school committee and use what I know and my love of working with people to make it better.
Thank you. Mr. Hopcroft, 1 minute.
All right, I'd like to start by thanking the League of Women Voters and my fellow candidates. I'm running to ensure that each student has the support they need to reach their greatest potential. This includes a focus on educational excellence, starting with our neighborhood schools, support for educators, small class sizes, robust social emotional support, and safe, comfortable, sustainable learning environments. I fully support an evidence-based structured phonics and phonemic awareness approach where teachers are empowered to meet the personalized needs of each student, and I support district guidelines to ensure discredited techniques are not in use. I'll continue to work with district leadership to ensure more voices are heard and included as important decisions are made, and that we focus on equity among schools and within subgroups. Finally, as the only representative of the Lynch community, I'll bring an important perspective to the new Lynch building project and traffic improvements. If re-elected, I will work collaboratively with town committees, boards, parent organizations to improve our already world-class school system while being smart and fiscally responsible with town resources. I respectfully ask for your vote on March 26th. Thank you.
Thank you. This ends the debate for school committee. Voting for the town election will be at Winchester High School from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Tuesday, March 26th. Thank you and good evening, and a round of applause for our candidates.